Who would you say your favorite restyler is?
Oh man,
No, I'm joking.
All of you guys.
I love putting people on the spot like that.
I will tell you this.
If you say Jared, I'm gonna punch you.
I will tell you this. I've been around. I love, Josh, how organized RU20 is. I think it's such a, you've taken a page out of dealerships. I mean, and probably out of other industries, right?
Welcome to the Ride and Style Podcast, your turbocharged pit stop for automotive restyling. Buckle up with Jesse and Josh.
All right, welcome to another episode of the Ride and Style Podcast. We're on episode 13, and today we have Eric Holmes of Eastman, who one of their many brands is Lumar, I'm very familiar with. Eric, thank you for being on the show today. We appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thanks, Jesse. Glad to be here. And Mr. Poulsen.
What's up, bro?
Awesome to be on your podcast.
Easy E in the house. We'll tell that story a little bit later. Yeah. No, this is awesome. Eric Holmes. Man, when did before we talk about when we met, I got to ask, when did you were a window tinter first, right?
That's
Back
right.
when, were you in Dallas? Did you grow up in Dallas?
Yep, I did. I grew up in Arlington, Texas. Right in high school, I had some friends of mine that were window tinters. And I remember I got my first vehicle was a 1974 Super Beetle. And it was all black, didn't have any brakes, popped a spark plug out every once in a while. And I'm definitely not mechanically inclined. But anyway, these friends of mine, I was like, hey, I want these windows tinted. Well, I didn't know much about window tint, but that is not a very fun car to film. The back window's very hard. It's rubber set windows. It has the little vent windows in the front. And so, they're hooking up all my friends with window tint. And they're like, I don't know about that Beetle, man. That thing's going to be like a lot more expensive. And so, I kind of just love the industry. I love the trade. I mean, when I went there, they had music playing. It was such a cool vibe working on cars. I thought, man, this is something that, I'd like to get into. And so, I went to the distributor down there was American Filter Film. So back at that time, Lumar ran through distribution partners, and this was in 1997.
Okay.
And so the owner of the company, Shades in Irving, Texas, was like, hey, we'd like to hire you, but you need to go through tint school first. And I said, okay, I'll do that. I was just I didn't have much money. I borrowed $500 to pay for my class at American Filter Film to go through a week-long window tint school. It was their very first school that they had ever performed. And so here I am, a week into this gig. I get my first job. I'm thinking I'm a window tinter. The first thing these guys did to me was throw away all my tools and started teaching me how to run cars and clean cars. So I paid all that money and put in the work for that whole week and was basically back they had other names for this title, but for your podcast, we'll call it shop apprentice.
I can only imagine. So you didn't get to actually tint after tint school?
No.
So when did you end up getting into tinting?
It probably took me about a year. I mean, you think about back in the late 90s, cutting software was a dream. I mean,
yeah.
I think Tint Tech 2020 was in the very early stages of creating their first cutting software. So it's and still to this day, it's very much an artistic trade. But you had to learn how to hand cut, and each door is different. You got breakaway doors, frameless doors. At that time, believe it or not, window tinters weren't even shrinking windows in one piece. I mean, that was you were a pretty good installer to do everything in one piece. I actually learned how to seam back windows. Now, it wasn't the giant overlap seams you saw. Unless the customer wanted that $99 special, then we would put a big old overlap seam, and who cares? But yeah, it took me probably, Josh, about, I would say, a good year before I was semi-comfortable on my own kind of tinting. And that was, these youngsters today learning this trade, they don't understand, like, what kind of maybe some of us went through in the beginning of this trade, which is, hey, I need to help get these cars in, move the seats up, take the brake light out, flip the mats over. And then when that job is done, I might be able to sit down and learn something from an installer,
Yeah.
and that's how I learned the trade. So it took a lot of extra time and motivation on my part. And I think a lot of guys that's been in this industry a long time, they all went through the same thing. Yeah, I'd say back then we used to say it takes about 2 years to become really proficient and be able to handle any car that kind of comes into the shop. So
that's what I appreciate. So Jesse, that's what I appreciate so much about a guy like Eric, who, he sells window film and paint protection film, but he actually did it. He lived it. So, when he walks into a shop and he talks to someone like myself or another restyler, they actually, we have a weird respect for that, not that he can go down there and do his Beetle, that's a tough car, but he understands the trade. He understands where the installer is coming from, but now he knows the other side of the business, the sales side, the owner's side, where he can kind of put it all together and help a company out.
Yeah. And that's I will tell you, so I did installation for about 13 years, and what is this? Mark my 14th year working for a manufacturer. So I'm over the hump. I've actually spent more time in corporate America than I have in the installation game. But my sales rep at the time, when she got me on board, she said, Eric, the first thing you need to do is forget about being an installer. And I did not understand what she meant when she told me that. But, learning how the business operates, and it makes a lot of sense to me 14 years later. I mean, and I would also challenge, corporate America to understand what an installer goes through. I mean, you need to know, how these guys operate, what their preferences are, why certain things make sense, why maybe as a sales rep going into a window tint shop and really putting a lot of pressure on an installer to change their solutions is a really bad idea, because they don't like to change.
Yes. Tell me about it.
You have to ease those conversations in. And so I think, that it's definitely given me a lot of experience and really, in my opinion, helped me succeed in corporate America.
So Eric, how did you go from working in a shop and doing installations and window tint to actually working for Eastman? What was that transition like, and how did it happen?
Yeah, so I window tinting, and especially at the level I was doing, I started out at Shades, and I did that for a couple years, and I ended up joining the Marine Corps during, I went in as a reservist. Came back.
Thanks for your service. Thank you for your service. It's awesome.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Thank you. I needed it. I was a hellion as a kid, and I needed some direction. And the Marine Corps gave me all the direction that I needed. And there's a lot of.
But don't you think every window tinter should have to go into the Marine Corps for at least 6 months to a year? Do you know how great the reputation for window tinters would be at that point?
I agree.
Kudos to you.
Yeah. I mean, I'm happy at the time I saw at least had the fortitude to say, hey, you got to change something, buddy. Having a lot of fun. I mean, obviously window tint, especially back then, I was making pretty good money before I joined the Marine Corps. And it's like, all right, I need some direction. It is a full-time job. I work 9 to 6 days a week at the shop that I worked at. And it was a high volume shop. And I think as much as I love the trade itself, it's like, okay, this long term, is this really a career? Am I going to have kids and be married and come home in a salt rung shirt, every day and worried about the next, how busy we're going to be the next day, sort of thing. So I said, okay, let me join the Marine Corps. Let me figure that out. I had a couple friends of mine did that, got out of that, and then, in Dallas, there was this switch that happened, and I'll give you some history. And I think it's important for restylers as well. But you think about back then, there's a lot of mom and pop shops, and a lot of them really depended on dealer work. And in Texas, anyway, the shops did not pay installers that well. I mean, I started out in this industry in 1997 as a shop apprentice. I made $250 a week. I paid my own gas, drove my own car for running cars and whatnot. Clearly, I really paid to learn the trade the way I didn't have much money at that time. 2 years later, I think my salary was $450 a week, working 6 days a week, and I could tint anything you threw at me.
Wow.
Well, then installers, started figuring out that these dealerships pay what's called flat rate. And so they pay a couple hours labor for a car. And if you could do 8 to 10 cars a day, you do the math, I can make $300 a day. I was like, dude, I've got to find a job at a car dealership. So oddly enough, I bought, my wife and I bought 2 cars at Buzz Post, and during finance, I was pitched window tint. And I said, who's doing your window tint? They said, we used to do it here, but I think they're looking for a window tinter. Why do you ask? I'm like, well, I do window tint for a profession, and if you need a window tinter, I need a dealership to work at. So he introduced me to the service manager, Mike Carlson, and that was my first gig working at a dealership. And so that was really good, right? I mean, financially, I made a lot of money as an installer, but then it's a major grind. It's just volume every day. And so I decided, all right, I need to finish school, and I want to still be in the industry, but I want to be on the other side of this industry. I love people. Working at a car dealership, there's pros and cons. I would say I'm the guy in the corner in the room that can't have, fans and can't have people in there. And it's very mundane. It's the same cars over and over again. You don't get a lot of social, activity, which is hard for me. So I went back to school, graduated in 2009, and got an opportunity to join Solutia at that time in 2010, and moved to Denver, Colorado as a account manager. So that's how I kind of got my in into corporate America, Jesse. Just I had to have a degree, right? And no matter, some people can look at that, and I hear installers today, I don't need to do that requirement. I've been in this business for X amount of years. Well, look, I thought the same thing, but the reality is you can either own the challenge that you have in front of you and go take care of it, or make excuses on why you didn't do something. And for me, I was like, hey, I'm going to enroll in school and get this knocked out. And it worked well for me. So
part of that lesson had to have come from the Marines, adapt and overcome, right?
I would say yes. I think that's probably the biggest takeaway I had from the Marine Corps is, you can do anything you want to set your mind to. I mean, and I know a lot of people have that confidence, but it is a reality. You might not always understand the path to get there, but if you try your best and work through the challenges and have the courage to make the decisions, then I think, good things will happen. So.
And so what's your current position now, and tell us about what you're responsible for and what do you do?
Yeah. So, kind of started, I'll just give you the roadmap. I think it's pretty cool. I started out as an account manager with Solutia. We got acquired by Eastman Chemical Company in 2012. And so when Eastman acquired us, obviously there's a lot of, which was a great acquisition. I was very happy that we were being acquired. Solutia, while it was a great chemical company, didn't understand our performance films business. And, they were positioning the organization to sell. I was super junior in my career at that point. So I didn't understand the writing on the wall, the cost cutting, the this, the that, all the things that corporations go through when they're positioning to sell. It's pretty brutal to work through. But when we got acquired, there was a ton of energy from Eastman into our organization, and all the way from the top down. I mean, Travis Smith was our general manager at that time. Just really, try to know everybody in the organization, which, I see your restylers do the same thing, right? You have to know your team. And so that's how, that welcome to Eastman was. And I was fortunate to be part of a a group discussion around, hey, we see a lot of opportunity here. How can we grow this business? And at the time we had a lot of dealer work. I wouldn't say a lot. We had a good foundation of dealerships. During Solution, we had several distributors. We weren't really factory direct. So they made the choice to take over those distributors. And some of those distributors were really strong at going to dealers and selling our program. So fast forward to when Eastman acquired us, we have a sales team that is what I would call kind of a jack of all trades. They were responsible for selling film to architectural clients, which is a whole different sales process. You're looking at energy reduction. You're dealing with a whole different class of people than you are when you deal in the automotive space. And in the automotive space, you had, mom and pop pro shops. Some of them had car dealerships, but there is a distinct difference in how you serve, a mom and pop kind of entrepreneur independent than how you look at servicing a car dealership and even how you service a restyler. Now, today, we're very segmented and we understand that. Back then, we weren't structured for that. So they said, hey, we want to grow this automotive business. What are some of your ideas? And I said, well, we really need to focus on building a dealer program. We don't have anything today. We're asking a sales team to go out and talk to car dealerships, which is very intimidating in its own. And then you have to learn about a parts department, a service department, sales, finance, all these things come together. And we're just not going to be effective unless we have a team to do that. And so we set out to pilot a program that I was a part of. It was me and another guy. And we ran a pilot with 10 customers across the country for about a year. And our goal in that pilot was not to understand preload business. That's very easy to understand. Give me some keys, we'll put our product on, put an addendum on, put it on the lot. I mean, there's not much to that process. Clearly, setting it up there is, but really what we wanted to see is, can we be effective in taking a dealership that might say, I don't want to preload, but I want to sell after the fact? Can we help them grow their penetration? Can we take a dealership and double their growth? And we were successful in doing that, which really eliminated some risk for Eastman to build a sales force to go out and service automotive dealerships. If everybody in the world depended on preloads, it's a lot of the business is preload, but it can be challenging if you don't understand how to work with the dealer to sell after the fact. So, we started with 2 and we continued to grow it. I think today I have about 50 people roughly in my organization. So I started out as an account manager, moved into a kind of a special assignment sales role, if you will, to help launch this program. Got promoted to kind of a regional manager, then a North American sales manager, and then last year at the beginning of the year moved into a more of a commercial leadership role.
So is there any more rungs on the ladder? No, I'm joking.
There's a lot.
There's a lot of runs.
I'm never content, Josh.
I know. Oh my gosh. So let me tell a funny story before we talk about how we met, because that was kind of a fluke too. Because that was back when you were getting started. So that's right where we're at. So Jesse, this is pre-COVID. Yeah, this is 2019. I'm talking about, at SEMA?
When we first met.
No. 20. Okay. I'm talking about when it was Halloween.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. 2019, poolside at the Paris, I think. Paris Hotel in Vegas, SEMA.
Cosmo. It was at the Cosmo.
It was at the Cosmo. Okay.
Yeah.
So I go to the Lumar party, and there's my man, and I walk up, and it was kind of dark out, but then he came around the corner, and this man had his full Compton hat with his Jerry curl wig, black leather jacket, and of course he's a big NWA fan, and then I'm like, Easy Eric, and I'm like, that nickname will stick for life. It was a true homage, I guess we say, to NWA, but he looked the part, and man, From to that day, I just every time I see him, it's Easy E now from now on.
I took a page out of your book, Josh. You are always bringing fun, entertainment to any group you're a part of, and it's. But that was an interesting because we're there. Here I am working for a Fortune 500 chemical company. We're at SEMA. It's Halloween. I understand our customer base, right? They like to have fun, but our parties are nice events.
Very nice.
Everybody were in, suits, whatever. And I'm like, you know what? It's Halloween. I'm doing it. And so I didn't know if it was going to be a career limiting move or if, but it turned out to be a pretty good move. So everyone thought it was funny.
So you started with so when did you said Solutia bought Eastman or Eastman bought Solutia when?
2012.
So that had to have been real close to when you came to Columbus then, right?
I think I met you guys around it was either 13 or 14 is when we started kind of working together. And that was a very I really, to be candid, I had no idea what a restyler, like a true restyler, was. I understood what a service provider was, but I did not really understand what a restyler was, as I think a lot of people in this industry don't understand what
totally.
I mean, clearly I think aftermarket manufacturers like Go Rhino and companies like, they understand, right? That's how they go to market. But we in the film business, we did not really understand, as a lot of restylers at that time would sublet work out to our independents to do the work for the restylers. So, that was, you can tell the story. I'm happy to talk about how we walked in. And I was very hesitant in the beginning because I didn't know, like.
I mean, we have a Restylers United meeting, right? So we have all the guys come in from different shops that are part of our group, and usually we'll invite a vendor or two to come speak. Well, at our previous meeting, which I think we were in San Francisco, I think we were in San Francisco before, because we said, hey, let's have a window tint company come talk to us, because a lot of the companies, including myself, were wanting to get more into window tint, window film, paint protection film, as another product. So we were going to talk to, I think 3M was going to come, but I was hosting in Columbus, and I was getting in the business, and there was one of the distributors for Lumar at that time was in my backyard, and they were constantly trying to get me to buy their product. So I had been in the business a little bit, and we were using 3M, but I said, all right, I'll tell you what, why don't you guys come show up to our meeting and talk to our group, because you're in Columbus, it'll be easy. And then they reached out to Eastman and said, hey, Eastman, why don't you guys come to Columbus and speak to this group? We're a distributor, but we can't service all these customers nationwide. So they wanted Eastman representation. So I was like, all right, great. And I remember this guy named Mike from Eastman, been there for 30 some years, came, and next to him is Easy E. And so Eric's obviously a young guy in the business, and I was like, oh, okay. And I'll let Eric tell it from his end. But what was funny is, he comes in, he does a full presentation, he has to do the whole thing. But what I liked about Eric is he was a window tinter at one time. He understood the dealer business because, like he said, he worked for a dealership. And so once he put two and two together, what we do and where we were all across the country, it worked out just really well. So maybe you can tell the story about Denver market and how you kind of got involved.
Yeah, I mean, I think the lesson that I took away from the overall experience, right, is trust and transparency. Those two things are really critical for this whole operation and for our partnerships to be successful. But you can imagine, I mean, I'll give you some prehistory. Just, now I'm a couple years into this. I've got 6 or 7 people on the team. We've put on some significant growth. We're putting a lot of effort into growing the dealer business, and then a distributor that we have obviously a great relationship with that distributor. But as I told you, those distributors are being phased out. So it was like, and our kind of thinking behind that was, hey, we want to make sure we don't want to go into any market and start calling on dealers without understanding who our customers are, what relationships they have, etc. So it was an interesting scenario where we didn't really have that much market knowledge in Ohio. But Mike at that time, who's now Mike Sasala, he's now an Eastman employee. We're glad to have him. He's helps us with pattern acquisition. And Bo was over there at
Performance.
Films. Got on the phone with me, asked me to come do this. I said, "What is a restyler, and where are all these guys? They're all over the country. Okay. Well, it just so happened that one of my first accounts I got as an account manager back in 2010 was downtown, like Denver, BMW and Mercedes. And it was a family-owned group. They had been doing window tint and PPF in-house for a long time. I was successful in converting that account over to our program. Well, that dealer group got acquired by Sonic Automotive Group, which in the dealer business, especially over the last couple of years, consolidation has been a big thing. But at that time, a guy by the name of Josh Elliott and his company's Autoplex here in Denver has a great relationship with Brian, who is the GM, came through Sonic and whatnot. And I heard some rumblings from the installation team that they were going to make some changes to use a vendor, and that vendor was Autoplex. So, interesting story. I sat in that waiting room to talk to the GM. I'd never met Josh or Tony previous to this meeting, and it was now that I know who they are. They literally sat in that meeting for probably an hour and a half, and it was me and another employee just waiting patiently to talk. And once that meeting ended, everybody kind of darted, and Brian came over and he said, "Hey, sorry, we're making a switch, and you guys have been a great partner. It's not nothing about your service, but we just don't want to manage this program, and we're very connected with Josh and the Autoplex team." And I thought, okay. And that was personal to me. It was my first account. I did a lot of work to help them over the years. And so I went to the installer. I said, "Hey, give me that business card of the person that, is going to take over." And of course the installers are up in arms, right? They're like, I'm quitting, find me another job.
Yeah.
And so
it's the end of the world. Yeah.
And I just said, "Hey, do not make any rash decisions here. This is a great dealership for you guys. There's not a lot. The grass is not greener than this. There's a high volume, good account. Don't leave over this decision. Just hang tight, So, and they're like, "Okay, Eric." So I called Tony at the time because that was the card I got, and left him a message and said, "Hey, I know you use 3M. I know you just got this account. I would love to talk to you about maybe just keeping this account Lumar, and let's work together." And so they had called me back, and I found out from them that their biggest challenge at the time was, we have to keep these installers. We do not have extra installers to put at the shop. And I said, "Well, I can help you with that. And I would like to keep this business." And they said, "Well, all right, you help us keep the installers. We'll give you a shot at BMW, and we'll go from there." Fast forward like a week or two, and I'm looking at the list of RU20 dealers, and Autoplex is one of them. And I'm like, okay, all right, this is going to be a good event. So we were invited. We hosted a dinner at Smith & Walensky's.
Oh yeah, I make the window tint companies pay big time. Yeah.
Yeah, had a couple of cocktails, got to know the RU20 group, and what an awesome group of guys. But going back to the business, I think it was, I had to get up there and say, and this is Josh, where I think a lot of your group appreciates how we handle it. I said, "Look, this business is messy, and the channels are messy." I said, "There are independents out there." At the time, Permaplate, which was acquired by our competitor Expel, they have a whole business where they do nothing but sell film to car dealerships, and they actually do the labor as well. And so it's an area that we have to be a part of. We have to succeed there, but we also want to support partners like Restylers to go out and get that business. We don't have to have it directly. We can have it through partners, but we need somebody focused on it. And the problem with independence is, and I get it, right? You have a smaller shop, maybe 4 bays, maybe 3 bays. You don't want to clog it up with a bunch of low volume or low margin, rather wholesale work that's going to pay you on net 30, that expects you to drop everything at any moment to go pick up a car. If you can fill it with retail, then do it, and that's what a lot of our independents do. They don't like working with dealers. So once I found out about Restylers and how you're structured, you have outside salespeople, you understand how to call on the dealer, you're good with the margin issue. Like, hey, it's because, Restylers have a book of other deals to sell to car dealers. It's not just window tint. It's not just paint protection film. You want leather, wheels, tires, vehicle security. It's all encompassing. And when you look at it from the account level, it's very much worth it.
Yeah.
And so that was really, really a great match made in heaven for us to be able to work with a partner that understood the mission is we've got to go out and help these dealers succeed. And we don't care if they succeed on internally or if they partner with a restyler that wants to do it that way. And so we share tactics, tips, tricks. Like, clearly, I think there's a sweet spot for the right size dealership for a restyler. If you get some of these dealers that are selling 300 cars a month, I mean, clearly they have the volume to manage, an in-house program. And still some of them don't have the capability to do it. So it still works out.
Yeah, totally. What do you what advice would you give a shop if, let's say, they're wanting to, maybe they do have some tint experience, but they want to go after that dealership business? What advice would you give them if they have the little bit of a foundation? They already have a tinter, they already are doing some tint work, or PPF. PPF is probably even a better story to tell. How do you go after the dealership?
Yeah, I would say just that, right? I mean, you got to use the strategy of land and expand. I mean, you can't just go in there and, I think first and foremost, what is great for our industry, and if you do like a Google search, consumer search, what do consumers want out of a window film product? Ceramic films over the last decade have been a really fast growing product line for us. And the assumption is that the dealer wants everything the cheapest possible price, so go in first and don't go to the bottom, just talk to them about, hey, and bring some data. They like to see data. Consumers know about ceramic window film. It's a differentiator. The shop can sell that for more than a typical $129 wholesale special or whatever it is to the dealer. The dealer, they need to understand that the dealer has to make money. If the dealer's not going to make money, you're pretty much useless to them. And so you got to get in the weeds with understanding if they're going to preload, what price are they going to put it on the addendum? Is the parts department got their hand in the cookie jar? Does the service department? You kind of have to work through a lot of those details. But then it's about gaining other business. It's, what other services can you provide? Is it paint protection film? Is it, like I said, are there other services that work for you? And I think from a financial standpoint, you have to look at a dealership as what kind of monthly revenue is that account bringing in for you, not what job did I do for the dealership today? And I just kicked out a retail customer because that was a $500 tint job, and this dealer wants me to move that out for a $200 tint job. Well, if that dealer is sending you $20,000 a month, it's not a $200 tint job. It's a $20,000 account. So, I think that's where, a lot of here's the reality too. If you're at capacity doing retail work, I would question, why do you want to go do dealer work?
It's a good point. Yeah, it's a good point. The problem is what happens, don't you think, Eric, is they look in one day, they don't have as much work, and they're like, oh, I should be at dealers. But then, like you said, once you do get in bed with a dealership, then they expect you to be there all the time, not just when it's convenient for you. So are you willing to either do more work or tell a couple retail people, push them off to take care of the dealership? So before you decide to get married, that's what it is. It's a marriage.
Josh, you're absolutely right. And I think, these guys work 367 days a year. They're open. They never close. Their expectations are high. But I would say if you find the right partner, they can be very profitable for a shop. And, I think it leads to bigger opportunities down the road. But yeah, I think dealer work's not for everyone. But you have to be in the right mindset to understand this is not a winter solution until you get to that summer retail, blitz, where if you get that dealer, you need to make sure, even during the busy times, that they're a priority to you if you want to maintain them. Because if you don't care to maintain them, then don't make them a priority. And I promise you, it's so easy for these guys to switch.
And Jesse, what I love is Eric's team will help a shop go through this. They'll, even if you're a shop and you want to talk to Eric's team, they'll walk you through it and they'll tell you, okay, are you really ready to do this? If you are, we'll help you. Great. It makes, it's good for them, but they'll also walk you through it and, they'll be honest with you. Transparency, like he said, and that's what I've always appreciated about it.
I love how you said land and expand. That's just a great, simple sales piece of advice. I love it. I really love that. How about tell us a little bit more about Lumar and what makes you different? What makes you guys unique in the industry? I mean, restylers and installers have a lot of different options nowadays, and what makes Lumar special?
No, it's, when I got into this, there's only a few brands, and now it seems like every year at SEMA, there's 15 more booths with, I'm like, who is that? So, I think, first and foremost, Lumar started out really over 50 years ago manufacturing in Martinsville, Virginia. And the kind of expertise came out of textile manufacturing, which is big up in that area. And, they started processing films. And so just, I'd say one of our core competencies as a company is really our manufacturing capabilities, innovation, and again, I think we might be passed up by an Indian manufacturer, but for the longest time, we were probably we were the largest manufacturer of window film, and probably arguably still on PPF. But I think the big difference now today is like there's a lot of good products out there. One of the best decisions that our company made was, and I'm not saying this as any harm to a distributor, but you can imagine the challenge of being run through a distribution model. It's very challenging to get 6, 7, 8 distributors all on the same page, especially with a program like mine. So if I want to go meet with an RU20 group and Josh is in Columbus, but we have Brad Marion in California, those programs have to look the same, feel the same, be the same. Right? And when you run through distribution, you don't have that control. You don't have the control to get that distributor on the West Coast to do the same thing that the Midwest distributor is doing. So a lot of people think, manufacturers, they go factory direct because it's less money. The distributor's not taking margin. From my experience, I would say that's not all the way true. We spend a ton of money, and now we own the marketing. We own the sales people, we own the tech service people, and I think that's what makes Lumar different. And number one, we're a manufacturer, so we can control our quality, we can control our innovation. Then we're staffed appropriately to service our customers, and that's all the way through, right? It's from tech services, so installation in our business, and I think Josh would agree with me, is the largest number one barrier to growing. It's demand is there. I mean, us salespeople, we get frustrated sometimes on not getting that deal or trying to grow demand. But if I look at it from 30,000 feet, demand is here. What the challenge is can you efficiently put that product on the car, exceed the customer's expectations, and will they tell their mom, their brother, their sister, and come back and get, another job? That's what we have to do right. And so I think, where I'm super proud of Eastman is that they understand that, and they provide the resources and team to be able to go out and execute that. So, I have some strong competitors in the business. Some of them, they have portions of that, right? My largest competitor, they don't make anything. They buy from, other suppliers, and they market very well. And they do have a great team out in the field that provides those services. We feel like we have an advantage with our ability to make our own products and hit the market with new innovations, et cetera. But it's interesting. You see a lot of window film and paint protection film companies now, like kind of getting into things like ceramic coatings and reboxing that or rebranding it to your brand. That hasn't been our strategy. We kind of want to stay in our lane with what we're good at, and we have no problem referring partners in the business to say, look, if you want a ceramic coating, these are the Modesta, G-Technic, whatever. These are companies that we hear really good things about in the market. I'm happy to pair you up with those guys. We've talked about maybe manufacturing one, but for us right now, we need to focus on what we're good at and get it right.
I think a lot of what I love about, just the film business, what I've learned in the last, 15 years with doing film is it doesn't matter what the manufacturers do with the car. So this whole push on EV, when you're really focused on film, who cares if it's an EV? The film goes on an EV just the same as it does everything else. If it doesn't matter whether it's a truck, it doesn't matter whether it's a car, an SUV, a CUV, it doesn't matter. Until they stop painting cars or until they stop putting glass in cars, then we got a problem. So where do you think the potential? I mean, do you have any stats that you can just? I mean, I know 65% of all statistics are made up on the spot, but what do you have any stats to show how much of the market PPF is really doing, or what the potential is for film, for tint, or for PPF?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be less than 5%. Really, 5% of consumers are buying PPF today, and I think that's a stretch. Wow. I think years ago, we used to think that window film was probably, if you averaged it out in North America, maybe 2 out of 10 consumers purchase window film. We believe that number's grown pretty significantly, and I think PPF is definitely growing over the last couple years. It's exploding. COVID really helped us with that. You think about consumers paying $10,000 over sticker price for the car. I think there's something in your head that's like, well, I hope used car values stay high, but you know what? I think I'm going to go ahead and put a little PPF on this car and protect it because I need to hold my value on this car. And I want it to stay nice. Maybe I'm going to keep it longer because I just paid a lot of money for this vehicle. And not to mention, look, for all parties involved, right? It's a very profitable installation, not only for a restyler, even a restyler selling it to the dealer. There is profit all the way around. And so it's obviously, again, installation becomes the biggest barrier. So I think there's a lot of room for growth. And you think about, like, you mentioned something about, hey, unless people stop painting cars. It's interesting what's happening with this Cybertruck, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so you've got, the vinyl industry is huge. A lot of people are wrapping cars, customization. Nobody's going to, anyone that buys a Cybertruck, that's the first thing they're going to do.
Wrap it.
How do I make this look different from everyone else's aluminum gray Cybertruck?
Yep.
So I would expect us to have some innovations and colors and different things down the road to handle. So even if they stop painting cars, Josh, we have a solution for you.
Look at you. He's always coming up. See, Jesse, that's why he's where he's at. I mean, he's doing what he, I'll tell you guys a funny story. So I met with my team. This was, I don't know, 15 years ago. And I was really just driving down on, man, is it possible that we can grow, or are we tapped out? Where are we at? And Catskin kind of gave me the idea because they did it first. So I just did the numbers. So I figured all of the cars that were sold in my market, and then how many of the cars we actually touched. And back then it was 2%. So we touched 2% of the cars. And I looked at my team and I said, guys, look, I don't want 100%. You know why? Because we couldn't do it. I said, we can't even do 4 to 5%. Can you imagine if our workload doubled? I said, but can we get to 3%? So when you say PPF's at 5%, I'm looking at that. We called it the we stink board. I think Leslie called it something worse, but we stink. We're only touching 2% of the cars. But if you think about it, as an industry, we're only touching 5% at most of the vehicles with PPF. What if that doubles in the next 5 years? It's only still at 10%. Yeah. If it triples, it's only at 15%. There's so much opportunity. That's why I love it.
I think the CAGR for PPF is somewhere around 8%. In my belief, I feel like it's a much stronger opportunity. I think the reason why it's not bigger is because it is a very difficult product to put on. And so
it is.
That's one of the things that we are trying to solve for. We've invested a ton of resources in identifying, with window film, it's like, okay, I can teach you the basics and I'm not going to belittle window film. I spent 13 years doing it. It takes time. But with a plotter now that cuts everything, like, you need to learn how to shrink. You need to learn how to put product on. Cars are also made a lot different today than they were 20 years ago. I mean, we teach really to bottom load window tint. So these cars snap together these days. You can just pop the panel back and drop the bottom of the film in. It does a very clean install. If anything, the learning curve becomes, how do I pop this panel back, right? Which for a restyler, you got plenty of people in the shop that know how to do that. And so you can learn. You won't be fast, but after a week or so, you can learn, the basics of installation with window film, and then it becomes repetition. That you can't do every car thrown at you. It takes a while to learn. After a year, you're going to be pretty good at it. With PPF, it's such a different animal. I mean, there are, from patterning the vehicles, that's a big, big investment that we've made millions and millions of dollars in, that's gone into pattern acquisition. But then, learning how to install. I mean, each panel is got its own unique set of challenges. Where do you start? How do you stretch it? Do I understand, like, this piece is not laying down right now. You got to walk away from it, maybe move on to another part, let it kind of sit, let it dry, then go back, and voila, it goes down. It's PPF installation is a very mental game. And so that's one thing. If you're an owner and you're trying to get into PPF, you need to really make sure you're taking good care of that installer and kind of understanding that it doesn't look like it, but I promise you they're under a lot of mental stress trying to, they're constantly questioning themselves. Can I learn this? Can I get this done? Is it me? Is it the film? We get a lot of the blame sometimes. It's like,
it's always the manufacturer's fault.
Jesse. Always. And so,
yes.
that's been.
But they take it so well, so it's great. We appreciate it. And they are one of the easiest companies to work with out there as far as customer service. But go ahead, Jesse. Sorry.
I was just going to ask, obviously things have changed since you first got in the industry. Can you touch on that a little bit more? But more importantly, where do you think the whole industry is going? You mentioned a few ideas, but I would love for you to elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah, I think, I think from two perspectives, right? I think if we talk about retail, what's interesting about the retail side of this business is that consumers are getting more educated about things like paint protection film, things like ceramic window film. And so, if you ever got your windows tinted in the late 90s, you walked into a shop, you asked them to tint your car, they gave you one price, you gave them the keys, your car went in the back and got window tint. There was very few shops at that time were educating consumers on the differences between, types of films. There's dyed films, at that time metallized. We still make metallized films, ceramic films, and then, you have this kind of ultra performing ceramic line of films. And as consumers have been more educated, I think that's drove the value of those ceramic prices up to where, look, there's some shops out there doing window tint jobs for $600-$700 today, and I think that's good. It's good for the shop. It's good for the consumer. They're doing high quality work. What that allows for is really high margin, less volume. So from a retail standpoint, that's pretty strong. PPF, man, that has been such a good addition to our customers, for us to manufacture. The evolution of how paint protection, it started out. I'm in an area, Denver, Colorado, where for years PPF was sold as just like a 12-inch. Do you want a 12-inch piece on the nose of your car? Do you want an 18-inch piece or a 24-inch piece? And that was the pricing. Now, I mean, you would be amazed at how many consumers, how many dealers are preloading, full matte wraps on vehicles and putting it on the showroom. They're, let's say a wholesale price, $6,000-$7,000. I don't want to tell people what they should charge, but there's plenty of money to make in that. And then they mark it up $8,500, $10,000. They're happy, you're happy. They're giving you cars. That's awesome. I mean, in our business, in the film business, to get a ticket with that kind of price on it was obsolete years ago. So I think that's, that's changed. What's also changed, I would say, is just the nature of installation, especially at the wholesale level. You think about now we have a lot of money invested in cutting software, and there's really two players in that arena. My main competitor, and then us with Core. And our competitor, if you look at the acquisitions they've made over the last several years, they really have been acquiring companies that provide installation to dealers. And so that's where, a lot of people see, and from our side of things, there's a lot of growth in that arena. Again, if you think about most independents, they don't want to work with dealers for all the reasons I stated, earlier, net 30 terms. It's a marriage, Josh, to your point. And so now you have this, interesting dynamic of a company that's putting a lot of resources into doing installation at this level. So, things are changing. It's not about continuing to add new shops. I mean, for any manufacturer, that's a hard task, right? Because then you start getting into market disruption issues. It's like, does Josh want me to put 15 dealers in Columbus, Ohio to continue to grow? No. So
13. 13's fine. 15's a little much.
But, and that's and we look at it that way, like, hey, my goal is not to set up a million restylers. If I have the right restyler, I don't need more restylers in that market. It's, because we're kind of, if you think about how our go-to-market strategy is chaotic. It's chaos. I mean, we have entrepreneur retail shops that are doing a great job. There's been a whole nother segment of these high-end detail shops. I was just talking to somebody about that the other day. Josh, Jesse, you remember in the 90s, right? Maybe early 2000s. Did you ever know of a shop that just detailed cars? I mean, you might went to Mr. Car Wash. You might go to the dealership and get an oil change and they wash your car for free. But there were no like high-end detail shops. You go to SEMA today, there's a whole wing of detail, chemicals, ceramic coatings, all these.
Yep.
So now that's a whole nother segment, another channel of, whatever you want to, jobbers. I don't know what the particular term it would be, but it's a whole nother channel of people installing film. And that's because coatings is paired extremely well with paint protection film. Coating helps you keep your car clean for a long period of time. Paint protection film helps it from getting chipped up, et cetera. And so now that's another kind of channel. So it's just interesting kind of how, then we have restylers. We sell direct to dealers. So we have to manage that very, very transparent with our restyle partners and with the dealers,
Who would you say your favorite restyler is?
Oh, man.
No, I'm joking. I love putting people on the spot like that.
I will tell you this.
If you say Jared, I'm going to punch you.
I will tell you this. I've been around. I love, Josh, how organized RU20 is. I think it's such a, you've taken a page out of dealerships. I mean, and probably out of other industries, right? I mean, that have these 20 groups, but it is it is awesome what you guys do to bring in restylers from across the country, share tips and tricks on, hey, what is your market doing here? When you guys start something like film. When I first met you guys, right, there was Josh killed it with film at
Yeah.
Autoplex.
He was about the only one.
Yeah, not many of you. Brad never touched it.
Yep.
Manny
no.
was dabbling in it. You were getting started. And so it was like this collaboration of, hey, once we start working with one, it was like I had a lot of support from within your network. It's like, well, Lumar, we're helping everybody, but y'all were also collaborating and helping each other, which was, if you're looking to recruit and you're a restyler, I would say a fantastic opportunity if you have a growth mindset and want to do big things. I mean, just that help is great.
I wanted to touch base, because we only have a few minutes left. Also, your volunteerism that you've done. I mean, you spent 6 years on the Select Committee. Why do you think being involved as a volunteer with SEMA, and having to take your hat off many times, your company hat, to just focus on the industry and all, why do you think that was important, and why do you encourage your team to still stay involved?
Yeah, I mean, thanks to you, Josh. You said, Eric, I think you would make a really good person.
You were voluntold. I mean, yeah, I said it was like Amway. I was like, you're coming to my next meeting, and anything you sell, I get 10% of, or something like that. But I didn't know you weren't actually making any money. So.
Yeah, I mean, you think about SEMA, and I attended the show for years. I mean, since 2010, I've been at every show, minus last year, and I think I had no idea the organization of SEMA itself. And as a vendor that goes and exhibits at SEMA, you really don't, I would say, unless maybe we're just idiots in the film business, we've been smelling too much adhesive or something, I don't really know, but I had no idea the structure of SEMA. So when you presented me with that opportunity, said, hey, SEMA's made up of, it's a nonprofit, it's made up of all these councils that support the industry. And I'm like, and there's a Restyle council. I thought, wow, what an outstanding opportunity. I mean, look, selfishly for my own business, I've met great people like Ron Leslie, for example. They call on the same customers. They have a similar operation. They've got to go out, get the car before it's sold, pattern the seats, and get it out. I mean, a little different go-to-market strategy, and they don't leather every single car. We're forced to pattern every single car. But it's interesting kind of networking and learning from other manufacturers, other restylers, how things are done. Look, I'm one to share my failures in this industry, and if that can help somebody else, it sure helps me when someone tells me, hey, I beat my head against this brick wall for 10 years and it didn't do anything, so don't go down that path. And so it's just, I think if you're open to learning and collaborating, what a great opportunity to do that. There's just a lot of great people in the business. I think you start to understand and see trends on what the industry is faced with, and things like EV cars. I mean, how does automotive aftermarket handle our traditional go-to-market is go to the dealer where the vehicle is sold and pitch accessories there. Well, how do we do that when it's sold on the internet?
Yeah.
And a lot of us don't have the resources, time to try and target some of these guys at the OEM level, but certain manufacturers do. And if we can share those contacts and relationships, I think that's where some magic happens. So it was a great experience for me, just learning about everything, and super happy, Josh, and thankful that you asked me to do that. And yeah, when I turned out, I was highly encouraged, and even years before that, right? I think for the council itself, the integrity of the council, you need to have people sitting on there that are passionate about what the mission is.
Sure.
And one of the things I learned is that SEMA, being a nonprofit, has a lot of funding. So if you can put together a pitch for something that SEMA feels like they need to support, then the council can actually make some real changes in this business. And so that was And we did some good things, right? We
Yeah.
came out with the accessory sales test. I flew out to California and helped kind of revitalize some of that. Now, there's a lot of information I didn't know about in there because it's not just film that we're selling here. We're selling tires, wheels, and everything. But it was good to learn about, just so many things. How do dealers, what's the lingo, right? What do different manufacturers, what kind of lingo are they using when they go in and call on these dealers? Maybe we should try to align or assimilate so we have a similar message going into the store.
Are you suggesting we come up with like an easy e-glossary?
Yeah.
Of some kind for dealers? I think that, that would definitely be it. Jesse, go ahead. Sorry.
Eric, thank you so much for doing this today. How can somebody get a hold of you? What websites do you want people to know about? And if restylers have questions, how do they get in touch?
Yeah, I think, I'm happy I could share my cell phone number, my email. Lumar,
what's your email?
Eric, it's Eric, ERIC.Holmes at Eastman, EASTMAN.com. That's my email. My cell phone, 720-272-6833, in case you need that. But yeah, go to our website, check out our products. I think if you have any connections with Josh or this group, Josh has made several connections over the years. And so, very happy to help anybody out. Passionate about the industry. I'm so excited about our future. I think this year you look at, what's happening, right? We've all been on I would say there's been some headaches, but for the most part, the accessory business has been on a gravy train for the past 2-3 years.
Way too easy.
And
yeah.
This year, I think it changes a little bit.
That's okay. Let's do this. I like it. We need to get back to work.
We got to get back to the grind. Interest rates are high, car prices are high. Used car values will likely stay pretty good, so that's positive for us. Inventory's coming back, which will create some pricing pressures with dealers and their affinity for maybe loading a $2,000 package on a car, $3,000 package. So we're gonna have to stop talking about how dealers can take advantage of not having much supply and focus that on how they can differentiate from their competitors' lots with our products on their car.
Now I walk into a dealership. You know what my sales pitch is, Eric? It's I complete you. You need me now. You know how you've been like ignoring me for the last 3 years? Now you need me. Let's work together. Let's figure out. Let's get you back into the black real quick. So no, Eric, thank you very much for joining us. Titan in our industry, so awesome to be a part of, and just the best guy to have a beer with. The only problem is it's going to be more than one. So get ready, hang on, and this dude will tell you funny story after funny story. But I love you, bro. You're a good guy.
Love you too, Josh. Jesse, awesome to meet you guys. Happy to be on this show. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah, thank you.
And there you have it, another high-octane episode of the Ride and Style podcast. Revved up and ready to go. Your hosts, Jesse Stoddard and Josh Poulsen, shifted your automotive game into overdrive. If you're hungry for more insights, trends, and game-changing interviews from the automotive restyling universe, don't forget to hit subscribe and leave a glowing review. We'd also love for you to share this podcast with your gearheads, installers, and auto lovers network. Because remember, knowledge is power, but shared knowledge turbocharges the whole industry. For more expert resources to supercharge your business, cruise on over to autostylemarketing.com, your one-stop shop for everything automotive marketing. Until next time, keep those wheels spinning and your passion ignited. Thank you for riding in style with us. See you on the next lap.